You pull into the parking lot at 7:42 on a grey Thursday morning. The sky looks like wet concrete. Your windshield carries a thin film of overnight dust. The car is 12 years old, maybe 13. Depending on how the dealer counted the first registration, it has 148,000 miles on the odometer. It has a coffee stain in the passenger footwell that never fully disappeared. The left rear hubcap came from a salvage yard outside town. $28 cash. You park between a pearl-white Range Rover with black wheels and a new electric sedan still wearing temporary plates. Your car has a sun-faded dashboard and a steering wheel worn smooth where the same hands have held it for years. You turn the key back. The engine shudders once, then goes quiet. A man in a navy quilted vest glances at your car, then he glances at you, then he looks away. The car tells him a story. He accepts it without negotiation. Employee, vendor, someone careful with coupons, someone who checks the gas price sign before turning in, someone who does not have options. He steps around the shallow puddle near your front tire, as if poverty might splash. He has no idea your brokerage account crossed $1.1 million at 2:13 yesterday afternoon. He has no idea your mortgage balance is smaller than the balance on his leased vehicle. He only knows what he can see. That is the first advantage. You learn how fast people sort each other. You learn that most status judgments are made in less time than it takes to lock a car door. You get out of the car. The door closes with a hollow metal clack. The man in the quilted vest is already walking toward the entrance. His shoes are clean. His watch is large. His phone sits in his hand like identification. You follow with a canvas bag holding a laptop, a banana, and a legal pad bought in a 3-pack for $5.99. The automatic doors open for both of you with equal enthusiasm. That is what money teaches you if you let it. The world is full of doors that do not care what you drive. People do. At the tire shop, the service manager explains financing options before he explains the repair. At the hotel valet stand, the attendant points towards self-parking before you ask. At a restaurant at 8:17 on a Friday night, the hostess tells you the wait is 90 minutes. Then she finds a table in 12, for the couple behind you with the convertible key fob and the louder confidence. You notice the extra beat before people decide how much respect to allocate. You notice the tiny recalculations. You notice how often politeness is means-tested. When you drive an old car with a quiet net worth, you become a contradiction to a culture trained to read value from surfaces. You are mispriced in public. Being mispriced teaches you more than being admired ever could. Admiration is noisy and usually useless. Underestimation is data. It shows you who needs symbols before offering respect. It shows you who confuses spending with substance. It shows you who cannot imagine money unless it has been converted into leather seats, chrome trim, a recognizable grille, or a monthly payment large enough to feel like proof. A car is one of the cleanest signals because it arrives before you do. It turns into the driveway first. It idles at the curb. It sits in the office parking lot from 8:56 to 6:11, broadcasting a financial identity to anyone passing with coffee. For most people, the car is not transportation. It is a press release. It says you are doing fine. It says you have arrived. You have seen enough tables to know belonging is often rented by the month. You remember the first time someone made a joke about your car. It happened outside a steakhouse where the cheapest bottle of wine was $72. A colleague laughed as you unlocked the door manually because the remote battery had died. He said he did not know they still made cars with keys. Everyone laughed just enough to stay safe. You smiled because correcting him would have been vulgar. You could have told him the car was paid for. You could have told him his new SUV required $1,284 every month. You learn to let people keep their assumptions because their assumptions protect your silence. You learn that dignity does not require a witness. The older your car gets, the more plainly people speak around it. You pull into gas stations where no one looks twice. You park on streets where a new car would make you check the window every 20 minutes. You hand your keys to mechanics who talk about actual problems instead of brand narratives. You sit in traffic beside drivers sealed inside $96,000 vehicles. You watch them grip the wheel with the exhausted expression of people who bought comfort and received obligation. At a red light at 5:28 p.m., You see a man in a luxury coupe glance at his phone. Then he glances at the dashboard. Then he stares forward with the dead-eyed tension of someone calculating a payment due date. The car looks successful. The person inside does not. That is one of the first separations you make. The object and the owner are not the same thing. A beautiful car can belong to a fragile life. An ordinary car can belong to a powerful one. The street cannot tell the difference. You can. The hidden cost of looking successful is never just the purchase. That is the beginner's mistake. People think the cost is the sticker price, or the lease payment, or the interest rate they bragged about, negotiating down by half a point after 3 hours under fluorescent lights. The real cost starts after the keys are handed over. A visible purchase demands a matching life. The $89,000 car does not want to sit outside a modest apartment with aging blinds and a shared laundry room. Then, the garage wants a house. Then the house wants furniture that does not look ridiculous when guests arrive. Then the furniture wants lighting. Then the lighting wants dinner parties. Then the dinner parties want wine, stories, friends with similar objects, and weekends that photograph well. One visible upgrade becomes a border checkpoint. You buy an ecosystem. You buy insurance premiums that rise quietly. You buy tires that cost $1,600 instead of $480. You buy oil changes that require an appointment, a waiting lounge, and a man in a branded polo calling you Sir. You buy door dings that feel personal. You buy the inability to park near shopping carts. You buy the anxiety of scratches. You buy a roll. Robles are expensive because they must be performed even when no one is clapping. You meet people who believe expensive visibility creates freedom. You meet them in office elevators, airport lounges, wedding receptions, and golf outings, where the grass is too green to be natural. They say they earned it. They say life is short. They say you cannot take it with you. They say it is about enjoying the money. They say these things while checking emails from people they cannot afford to ignore. They say these things while their calendars are packed with obligations required to fund the life that proves the income exists. You see the loop. Earn to display. Display to belong. Belong to access. Access to earn more. Earn more to keep displaying. The machine is elegant because it feels like progress. It gives trophies at every stage. A better badge, a larger grille, a heavier key fob, a more exclusive trim. But there is always another tier above. The person with the $70,000 car feels modest beside the person with the $140,000 car. The person with a driver feels temporary beside the person whose family office owns the building where the driver waits. Status is a staircase designed without a top floor. That is why it consumes people efficiently. They are not climbing toward arrival, they are climbing away from humiliation. Your old car interrupts the staircase. Not nobly, not dramatically. It simply starts when you turn the key. It takes you where you need to go. It asks for fuel, tires, and the occasional humiliating visit to a mechanic named Ron who smells like cigarettes and tells the truth. A paid-off car is not glamorous. It is better than glamorous. It is quiet. Fragile finances need noise because noise distracts from leverage. Fragile finances need brands because brands speak before anyone can ask what is underneath. You have sat at dinner with a man who drove a black S-Class and complained when the bill came because someone ordered appetizers for the table. You have watched a woman arrive in a white Porsche SUV and spend 20 minutes arguing with the salon over a $38 discrepancy. You have seen luxury used as camouflage. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it. The old car becomes more than a car. It becomes a filter. At 6:34 on a Saturday evening, you arrive at a dinner party in a neighborhood with uplighting, symmetrical lawns, and mailboxes chosen by committee. You park 2 houses down because the driveway is filled with a German SUV, a British SUV, and a truck that has never carried anything heavier than a Yeti cooler. You walk up with a bottle of wine that cost $31.99. Not because you are cheap, because you know the difference between generosity and performance. Inside, the kitchen is full of quartz, brass fixtures, and people discussing renovations with the seriousness of national policy. Someone asks what you drove, not directly. That would be too obvious. They ask where you parked. They ask whether you had trouble finding the place. They ask if you saw the construction at the corner. This is how class questions are disguised. You answer simply. You say you parked down the street. Later, someone sees you leave. There is a pause. It lasts less than a second. You catch it. The pause says, the car does not match whatever estimate they had begun forming. The pause is useful. It proves the estimate existed. You do not resent this. Resentment is for people who still want to be chosen by the game they claim to reject. You are observing status is not immoral. It is information. People use it to reduce uncertainty. The problem is not that people judge. The problem is that they judge with poor instruments. A car is a poor instrument. So is a watch. So is a handbag. These things reveal taste, pressure, insecurity, debt tolerance, peer group, and appetite for attention. Freedom is the email you do not answer at 9:46 p.m. Freedom is replacing the water heater in cash on a Tuesday. Freedom is sitting in the car after a bad meeting, engine off. Real wealth often looks like restraint. It looks like a calendar with white space. It looks like a car. Nobody photographs. The money not spent on display does not disappear. It goes somewhere. Compounding does not make an entrance. The $847 monthly payment you never took on does not sit in your driveway under a coat of wax. It slips into index funds at 9 a.m. on the 1st of every month. The $240 insurance difference does not impress a valet. It reduces the drag on your life. The $1,100 you did not spend on upgraded wheels becomes shares of businesses you will never visit. The $6,500 you did not put down at signing remains liquid. The $18,000 you did not lose to depreciation in the first 3 years becomes the seed of something that earns money while you sleep, shower, commute, and sit through meetings that could have been emails. The money you do not spend begins working in rooms you never enter. It buys claims. It buys time. It buys distance from desperation. It buys the right to be calm when other people negotiate from fear. A car payment feels normal because everyone has one. That is how traps hide. They disguise themselves as adulthood. The dealer asks what you want your payment to be, not what you want the car to cost. The payment is where reality gets softened. $700 sounds like a budget line. $58,000 sounds like a decision. The system prefers you think in slices. A slice for the car, a slice for the phone, a slice for the furniture, a slice for the vacation, a slice for the memberships, subscriptions, upgrades, protection plans, and small conveniences that make a good income behave like a leaking pipe. Wealth is built by people who refuse to slice themselves too thin. They keep large portions of income intact. They let cash gather. They give capital a chance to become heavy. Then one day, without ceremony, interest, dividends, rental income, business equity, and appreciation begin to form a second engine beneath the visible life. The first engine is labor. The second engine is ownership. Most people never build the second engine because the first engine is exhausted feeding the display. You feel the difference in your body. It is Wednesday at 10:22 a.m. when your manager sends an email with a tone that once would have tightened your chest. It is the mechanic calling to say, the repair is $1,087.43. You are annoyed by the inconvenience, not threatened by the number. It is a market downturn wiping $72,000 off your net worth in 3 weeks. You notice the loss without confusing it for danger because your actual life remains cheap to operate. That is the point of the old car. A low-burn life gives wealth room to accumulate. A high-burn life turns even large income into a treadmill. You know people with kitchens that belong in magazines who cannot miss 2 paychecks. You know people whose children attend private schools at $38,000 a year while the parents roll balances, refinance, postpone taxes, and call illiquidity a timing issue. You know people who look rich because every available dollar has been enlisted into the appearance of richness. They are not lying exactly. They are staging. Staging is expensive. Your old car is not proof of virtue. That would be sentimental. It is proof of preference. You prefer optionality. You prefer low fixed costs. You prefer capital over compliments. You prefer being underestimated by strangers to being owned by creditors. You prefer private power to public theater. This preference changes how you move. You stop flinching when something newer pulls up beside you. You stop imagining that the vehicle says something final about them or about you. You stop needing strangers to receive the edited version of your life. You become comfortable letting the unedited version sit in the parking lot, dusty, paid for, and unconvincing to fools. There is a moment when the old car becomes useful in a way a new one cannot be. The Bluetooth connection behaves like a moody relative. The air conditioning takes 4 full minutes to become useful in July. But every dismissal gives you clean information. At the bank, you notice which advisor speaks down to you before seeing the account balances. At a dealership, if you wander in for curiosity, you notice how quickly the salesperson categorizes you. At a valet stand, you notice who reaches for the keys with reluctance. On a date, you notice whether the face changes when you walk toward the old sedan instead of the polished SUV they assumed would be yours. In business, you notice who attaches competence to objects. This information is not emotional, it is tactical. People tell you who they are when they think there is no cost to underestimating you. That is one of the hidden privileges of invisibility. The visibly rich rarely get clean data. People flatter them. People adjust posture around them. People laugh too quickly. People agree too easily. People hide contempt behind service. People hide greed behind charm. Visible wealth bends the room before the wealthy person knows what the room would have been. When you appear ordinary, the room stays closer to its natural shape. You hear the real tone. You see the real hierarchy. You watch how waiters are treated. You watch who interrupts whom. You watch who becomes warm only after discovering usefulness. You watch who mistakes quiet for weakness. An old car gives you access to the unedited version of people. That access is worth more than admiration. Admiration tells you someone likes your packaging. It tells you almost nothing else. You begin to understand why certain wealthy people look aggressively normal. Not all of them. Some enjoy the spectacle. But the ones with nothing to prove often drift toward ordinary surfaces. Old fleece, plain shoes, a 3-year-old phone. A car that could belong to an accountant, a teacher, or someone's uncle. They have discovered that attention is a tax. Visible prosperity attracts requests, assumptions, resentment, invitations, schemes. When people know you have money, they begin forming plans for it. A cousin has an idea. A friend has an emergency. A charity has a table. Money wants silence because silence protects it. You learn this slowly. At first, you may have wanted the moment. You may have wanted to arrive somewhere and have people notice. You may have imagined the upgraded car as a correction to earlier humiliations. The high school parking lot. The apartment complex. The years when you checked your account balance before buying groceries. The awkward ride in someone else's luxury car when you noticed the smell of leather, the cooled seats, the weight of the door, and the fact that some people moved through the world cushioned from friction you thought was normal. Status has hooks, because humiliation leaves openings. The desire to be seen is rarely vanity at first. It is repair. A car is perfect for that, because it is public, mobile, and instantly legible. Revenge is a poor financial planner. It will spend whatever you give it and ask for more. What if the world never admits it was wrong? The day you stop needing public correction, money starts doing its real work. It creates distance. Distance from bad bosses. Distance from desperate decisions. Distance from social competition. Distance from panic. Distance from the need to turn every private success into a public announcement. You feel that distance when you pass a dealership and do not turn your head. Rows of vehicles sit under flags, snapping in the wind. Each windshield is painted with numbers in yellow marker. Each hood is polished to catch the low afternoon sun. You know the smell of the showroom. Rubber mats, burnt coffee, synthetic leather. You know the chair across from the finance manager. You know the printed sheet turned toward you with boxes, arrows, fees. You know the soft violence of being asked what monthly number would make you comfortable. You keep driving. The car rattles over a pothole. Nothing happens. That is the beauty of it. Nothing happens. No identity is threatened. No image is damaged. No calculation is required. You are simply moving through the city in a machine that has already surrendered its vanity. The real luxury begins after the object stops performing for strangers. The object becomes yours. Not the bank's, not the audience's, not the neighbor's. Yours. You learn the difference between premium and free. Premium is leather, horsepower, Stitched dashboards, panoramic roofs, ambient lighting, and the illusion that the world has softened because you paid more to pass through it. Free is no payment due. Free is no need to trade in before the warranty expires. Free is no anxiety when a shopping cart leaves a faint line on the rear door. Free is looking at the car as an appliance rather than a biography. A tool should serve the owner without becoming the owner's master. A car that demands lifestyle alignment has become a master. A house that demands all income has become a master. A wardrobe that requires occasions has become a master. A social circle that requires constant display has become a master. Debt makes masters quietly. It does not arrive wearing chains. It arrives with heated seats, welcome lights, a concierge app, and the phrase, "You deserve this." You become suspicious of that phrase. You deserve this. It is printed invisibly on almost every expensive mistake. You deserve the upgrade. You deserve the suite. You deserve the new model. You deserve the watch. You deserve the trip. Maybe you do. That is not the issue. The issue is whether the thing you deserve will reduce your freedom after the applause fades. The applause always fades. The payment remains. The insurance remains. The maintenance remains. The expectation remains. The baseline adjusts. This is the cruelest part of display. It stops feeling special quickly. The first week, the new car feels like transformation. You walk toward it in parking lots and feel a small charge of recognition. You take the longer route home. You notice reflections of yourself in storefront windows. You feel briefly revised. By the third month, it is just the car. By the sixth month, the payment is still the payment. By the second year, a newer version exists. By the fourth year, the object that once proved success begins to look like something that needs replacing to keep the proof current. Visible success expires. Quiet wealth compounds. You make it again and again. You keep the car another year. You invest the difference. You ignore the raised eyebrow. You endure the occasional joke. You replace the tires. You wash it on Sunday afternoon in the driveway with a bucket, a hose, and no ceremony. You sit inside afterward while the seats are still damp at the edges. You check the numbers on your phone. Not obsessively, just enough to see the second engine turning. Not in a straight line, never in a straight line, but upward through ownership. Meanwhile, the car ages. The paint loses depth. The headlights haze. The driver's floor mat develops a permanent heel mark. A small crack appears near the corner of the windshield and stays there for 18 months because it does not spread. The car becomes a moving refusal. You start to recognize other quiet cars. The old Lexus in the physician lot with a faculty parking permit. The 15-year-old Toyota outside the private wealth office. The dusty Subaru at the trailhead, beside vehicles that cost 4 times more. The beige sedan parked behind a small manufacturing company owned by a man whose employees think he is merely comfortable. Once you know what to look for, ordinary starts to look different. Sometimes ordinary is not lack. Sometimes ordinary is cover. You still appreciate beautiful machines. You are not pretending a worn sedan is the peak of design. You know the pleasure of a well-built car. You know the quiet cabin at highway speed. You know the soft close of a heavy door. You know the reserve power of an expensive engine. You are not immune to beauty. You are unwilling to confuse beauty with strategy. There may come a day when you buy the better car. Not because you need the world to see it. Not because a peer group made the old one embarrassing. Not because you are trying to close a wound. Because the purchase no longer changes the architecture of your life. Can you park it anywhere without emotional weather? You sit in it in the grocery store parking lot at 8:09 p.m. You sit in it after long days, the dashboard glowing orange, the engine idling unevenly, your phone face down in the cup holder. A cheap life is not a small life. The point is to know what the car is for. Transportation. Once you understand that, the whole culture looks different. You see the morning commute as a parade of balance sheets in disguise. You see the office garage as a hierarchy of obligations. You see the luxury row at the mall, not as evidence of wealth, but as evidence of monthly outflow. You see spotless vehicles that belong to people one emergency away from liquidation. You see dented vehicles that belong to people who could stop working tomorrow and confuse everyone. The surface is not useless, it simply cannot be trusted. Most people live inside the rumor. They make decisions to improve the rumor. You have chosen, at least in this corner of life, to improve the plot. Quiet wealth withholds. It does not explain itself. You begin to understand the edge of the room. The center is watched. The center performs. The center spends energy managing attention. The edge sees. The old car puts you on the edge. You can see the badges. You can see the anxious upgrades. You can see the people mistaking motion for escape. At 9:18 p.m., you leave the restaurant. The parking lot is darker now. Your car sits near the edge of the lot, giving away nothing. Through the windshield, you see your own reflection layered over the dashboard. No one turns. No one watches. No one recalculates. You start the engine. It hesitates, then catches. You pull out slowly, past cars that cost more and reveal less than people think. The road opens ahead, black and ordinary. Your net worth moves invisibly behind the glass of accounts, titles, equity, and claims no stranger can read from a parking space. The car does not announce it. That is why it works. You drive home under streetlights, unnoticed, unbothered, and increasingly difficult to reach.